welcome back to another episode of the Brazen podcast. Today, we want to talk about how to embrace a brazen mindset. So, let me explain what exactly we mean by that. So, when we say brazen mindset, we are thinking of just that mental space that you get into when you're feeling really confident and you're feeling like everything is aligned and going pretty well for you and like you can handle anything that life throws at you. So the word brazen itself means bold and unashamed. And the whole reason that Valerie and I chose that word to represent us and our business and this podcast is because we feel that is one of our biggest core values is like empowering women to live a life that is bold and unashamed and like really just stepping into your power as a person and creating a life that's unique to you and that fits you and your personality and your wants and your needs and your desires out of life. So, let's kind of dive into how you can embrace a more brazen mindset. Val, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So I think the first thing is you really do have to push yourself outside your comfort zone. That's going to be like the key thing to kind of really finding out what creates that unique, exciting, bold life that we're hoping everyone can achieve. And part of that is this is how you explore the world. But I like to think of your comfort zone as like a little bubble, and you should be trying to work to expand your bubble every day. And part of that is just trying something new every day. And I know we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but it can be very simple, like reading a new genre of books or trying a new recipe, going to a different workout class, just meeting someone new. Like it can be kind of a whole gamut of very basic new things, all the way to like scary new experiences. So just really embracing that idea of trying new things that will help your bubble grow a little bit every day, which is really huge.
Yeah, I know that when I first really started trying to work this into my everyday life, there were some things like I'm a huge introvert and I tend to be kind of like socially anxious and socially awkward. And so I really like my comfort zone bubble because that's like my safe place. But at the same time, I know that it is really important for me to just expand my worldview and expand my experiences just to become like a more well-rounded person. So I started really small. So, like, let me tell you a little story about myself. So, I'm for some reason really, really uncomfortable going into places like restaurants or coffee shops or anything like that that I am not familiar with, especially if I'm not with somebody else who maybe has been there before. Like, if I'm with somebody, then I'm generally fine, but if it's by myself, I will, like, go out of my way to avoid it at all costs. So, that's kind of just, like, my natural inclination, and so I just started becoming aware of that when I was, like, avoiding going into this other coffee shop because my usual one maybe was closed on a Monday and stuff like that. And so I would be like, okay, I am feeling very anxious about having to switch up my routine here. And just kind of like naming those little awkward feelings that are coming up and then being like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, I'm going to walk in and not know where to go. Or like, I don't know, what's the worst case scenario when you're walking into a place that you don't know? Like, I don't even know. All of the worst case scenarios really don't even seem that bad, but I work it up in my mind. And so just kind of recognizing that and then like talking myself through step by step, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna like walk in, and once I walk in, I'm gonna just like see where I need to go and go from there. Like take the next step after that. And so that's a really silly example, but that's one of the first steps that I started taking. And, from there, it kind of got less uncomfortable for me to like go into a new shop or like try out a different exercise class or like, go somewhere that I had never been before by myself. I mean, it's like a really slow process. Like you can build it up as slowly as you want, as slowly as you're comfortable with, but you just got to start taking those steps and like giving yourself a pep talk and being like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? And how can we handle that worst case scenario? And if you know how to handle a worst case scenario, then any of the other relatively minor things compared to that are going to be like a walk in the park.
Yeah, I think that the thing that I really like about how you describe that is it was such a like a small step, but it is something where you'll look back in like a year or a couple of years and be like, wait, I've actually come really far since that like one small step of stepping in a coffee shop that I didn't know. And I think the beauty of just kind of expanding a little bit at a time is it's never that uncomfortable and you are in a place where you can talk yourself out of your anxieties. But when you do take time to look back, you're like, wait, I've actually like grown a lot over that span of time. And I do think that also for me, I don't like to talk myself out of something. I just need to like do it without putting a lot of thought into it. It's like I just have to jump before I think too much. And so if it's
Yeah.
something that I'm nervous about doing, it's almost like I can't even have that lead up time to it. I just have to like jump into it. And I think one of my biggest fears is I personally hate public speaking, which sounds weird since we do a podcast, but I hate doing sort of live public speaking. And I've been trying to just jump into situations where I don't have a lot of time to think. So whether it's just like speaking up in a meeting with like a big, sort of town meeting, or if it's something where I can just like not necessarily prepare for it, but just sort of jump in. It's much better for me than knowing like I gave a toast at my sister's wedding this past summer, and knowing that I was going to be doing that almost was way scarier because I had way too much time to think about it. So I've just been trying to push myself by like just jumping in and saying yes to things without even like taking the time to sort of decide all the reasons why I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, so this kind of highlights the difference in personality between Val and I, where I am like a planner and she is more of like, let's just do it, like jumping into things. So that's just funny.
Yeah. That's why we're such
Yeah,
good business partners.
totally.
Yeah.
Yin and yang or yin
Yeah.
and yang. Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed as I've started doing this more and more over the last couple of years is, where I started, which was, feeling really uncomfortable going into a different coffee shop than I'm used to. And then thinking back, like to your point about you'll look back and see how much you've grown. Like I was thinking about this the other day while we were working on planning out this episode, and it was really awesome and super validating for me to think about all the new experiences that I've tried just because I started doing that work on myself of like trying tiny little things, like small steps to get out of my comfort zone. So, some of the things that I've been able to try or like had the courage, I guess, to try is like, singing more in public. Like I'm on my church's worship team, and like I never ever would have expected that I'd be going from, not wanting to talk to somebody at a coffee shop that I've never been to like singing in front of a group of people. And I've been like exploring more of my creative side with like creative writing and stuff like that. I've, applied for big speaking positions and I've actually gotten some of them. And so this is like very much on just like the borderline TMI side. But I also just like a couple of weeks ago started a sexy dance class, which is like, if you know me, that is so far outside of my zone of comfort, but it is so much fun. I was talking to Valerie about this a couple of nights ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, it is just like, I feel so great afterwards. I'm like so confident and I feel good because I've got all those exercise endorphins in my system. And it's just like one of those things that I probably, if I had never really started, or if I didn't start, my process until later, like I would not have been having this experience. And like, it is really just showing me that I really like dancing. Like that is a fun form of movement for me. And yeah, it's just like one of those really cool experiences because I was trying to get like all of my friends to do this dance class with me because I'm like, I am not doing this by myself. And then just through like various random circumstances, nobody was able to go to the class with me. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm just going by myself. And so I'm doing it by myself with a bunch of people that I don't know that well. And I'm just like, I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, oh my God, it is like so amazing, like how many awesome experiences I've started having since I've started getting outside my comfort zone. So I just want to encourage you, like, you don't have to go take a sexy dance class if you don't want to, although I recommend it if that's your thing because it is awesome and super
Even if
fun.
it's not your thing, because I
Yeah.
can like attest to the fact that you have been like glowing for the last 2 weeks since you started the class. And I do think that it truly, you just get so much confidence when you try something that is so outside your comfort zone. And it's like you get this
Yeah.
huge leap of just, motivation and inspiration, and like you get a lot of creativity from being able to like experience like a new situation, and it just adds to kind of your worldview. And as you know, curiosity is one of my top values, and I think embracing the world with that sense of curiosity, like what is this class going to be like, what am I like getting into? But you've like just gain so much from that just one step. And so like we definitely encourage everyone to just really get out there. And if you don't even know where to start, one piece is just saying yes to everything that people invite you to do. And even if you're like, yeah, I'd much rather be at home cozy on the couch, just saying yes for like a month, you'll have so many new experiences that you normally would have said no to. And so just getting out there and like really embracing that stuff can make a huge difference too.
Yeah. And I actually, since you said that, it got me thinking, I have a book recommendation. So Shonda Rhimes, the
Yes.
person who, wrote the scripts and storylines for Grey's Anatomy and Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder and like all of those really awesome shows, she wrote a book called The Year of Yes. And it is all about that exactly. It's like she
Yeah.
just started, she was called out by, I think it
Her
was my
sister.
sister,
Yeah.
and they basically were like, you never say yes to anything. Like you never do anything. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Like I have no time. I am writing for a TV
Mhm.
show and I have kids and like I don't have time for anything. But then she like realized that wasn't entirely true and she was just happy staying inside her comfort zone. So she challenged herself for an entire year to say yes to pretty much every opportunity that came up within reason, of
Yeah.
course. And she just talked about her experience of doing that and, how it changed her outlook and her mindset and how she lived her life. So that is a book that I really recommend if this is something that is speaking to you and you're kind of feeling like, yeah, maybe now is a time that I need to start making these steps. Check out that book because it's a pretty quick read and it is going to really inspire you to take some awesome brazen action.
Yeah, and if a badass like Shonda Rhimes needs to do a year of yes, like we could all benefit from something like that.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Brazen podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And we really look forward to talking with you next time. We'll see you later.
Bye.